This is Paul Schmid. Welcome to the Pursuit Zone. My next guest is Jordan Harvey. Jordan studied in Havana, Cuba, and spent more than 3 years traveling and living in South America. While in Chile, he and his wife guided in Patagonia and throughout the country while building their company, Knowmad Adventures, a trip operator and travel consultancy specializing in South American travel. He says starting and running an international travel business is the most challenging adventure of them all. Jordan Harvey, welcome to the Pursuit Zone.
Thanks, Paul.
Jordan, let's talk a little about your background. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Minnesota, in the suburbs of Minneapolis.
And how did you then end up in Cuba?
Well, my love affair with Latin America really starts back in high school. Was a little bored with the traditional school experience, I guess you could say, and found a flyer for AFS, American Field Service, one of the larger study abroad programs for high school students, and studied abroad in Chile, in South America. And that was really a result of simply what was available, and looking at a map, Chile seemed to be the coolest, if you will, to a 17-year-old kid. So made that choice, fell in love with Latin America, spent a good amount of time after graduating high school backpacking through South America. And then when it came time for a study abroad opportunity in college, I was looking for something again in Latin America, just due to my love for the region, and Cuba seemed as well. You know, there was a rare opportunity perhaps to get into a program that was, sending students to live in Cuba, which at the time was quite rare and really still is. So it seemed like it'd be a neat experience, and I jumped on it.
And what were you studying while you were there?
I took a range of classes, really. Politics, economics, focusing on I wanted to be in classes that really engaged me on topics that were relevant to Cubans. And so I took an economics class on communism and politics that was based on the politics of the United States. I thought that would be very, very interesting, and it was to, hear a class given in Cuba from the Cuban perspective on U.S. politics. Also took a globalization course and one other course, probably one other fluff course, because it was a too big load for me there anyways.
So what was life like in Cuba?
Life in Cuba is relaxed. It's a very laid-back island style, which is sort of made greater by the fact that, truth be told, and I'm neither positive nor negative, really just a lot of people don't really have that much to do. A lot of the jobs are constructed in some ways, so very laid-back, casual lifestyle. It was challenging, though, I have to admit. It wasn't like some of my other living experiences in other South American countries, strictly from the standpoint of logistics of managing your life. Getting to school, for example, the bus services were certainly a bit inadequate and traditional. They have what they call the micro, which is, typically these 1950s vehicles from the U.S. that are sort of iconic to Cuba. They would be picking up and getting 6 or 7 people in a vehicle, kind of like a public taxi cab, if you will, where it's almost like a small bus. But they're not really allowed to take foreigners, because foreigners kind of operate on this separate economy, if you will, within Cuba, and there are some sort of standard yellow taximeter cabs, and that's what tourists are supposed to use. But I was actually living there on a resident visa and was a college student, didn't have a lot of money, so those services didn't really line up with me. Yet all the drivers, for example, thought that it was illegal to be picking me up, even though I did have the paperwork. It was just kind of ingrained in their head, which is reasonable. So that's just one small example of things that made it a bit challenging from a living standpoint, but it's certainly a wonderful place to visit. But it was challenging to be a young foreigner trying to go to school and live in Cuba.
Now, how are your Spanish skills at this point?
I would, humbly say strong. I, like I said, lived in Chile for 7 months in high school, and then right after school spent another 5-6 months traveling in South America. By most people's standards, you'd say fluent, but that's also a widely interpreted word. And one thing to notice is Cuban Spanish, along with Chilean Spanish, they're two of the hardest Spanishes out there. Cuban Spanish has a lot of Afrikaans influence, and every Spanish in the world is quite different. But theirs is very fast and has a lot of hybrid terms that come from the Afrikaans language. So showing up to Cuba more so than any other Spanish-speaking country for me, or generally a Spanish speaker. And if you show up to a country, it's always a bit humbling because each Spanish is different. But Cuban Spanish was even more so. But yeah, I have, very strong Spanish.
Now, I'm not sure at the timeline here, so I'm not sure which question I should ask first. But, the two questions are, when did you meet your wife, and when did you start to begin thinking that you wanted to start a travel company for a business?
Sure. Every time I answer the question, I think I answer it a bit differently, and it's because it's very hard to answer. There's no straightforward answer, and it's certainly not black and white. But my wife and I actually turned out went to the same preschool and didn't know each other then, but we also went to the same high school and knew each other and were acquaintances back in school and had separate life timelines, etc. But yeah, we knew each other as far back as high school, really. And when did we decide to, figure out how to make a living from travel? So anyways, I'm 31 years old, so my wife and I met in probably, I'd say 96, 97 in early high school. And then when did we decide to make a living from travel? We got together in about 2005 and did a lot of traveling, a lot of different things around the world. Lived in Thailand and taught for a while, and I lived in Alaska and guided, and so a lot of different things that involved travel. And I would say in about 2008, we started really thinking about the fact that we wanted to make travel and adventure sort of two core tenets of how we make a living. But when it really started to manifest was we got married 4 years ago. And literally the week after we got married, we were on a plane down to Chile because we had decided that was where we were going to start making a living off travel. And we didn't know in exactly what form, but we flew down there right after getting married, and that's when it got real, so to speak, and we needed to make a living, and we built a small inbound trip operator, and that has slowly dovetailed to be Knowmad Adventures and what Knowmad Adventures is today.
How big is the business? I mean, in terms of the people that you have working for you.
Well, getting into the nuts and bolts of how the travel industry works, trying not to bore the listeners here, but we have about 5 people here in the U.S. on staff. And that, what we do in the U.S. mainly is we're here to promote South America and trips and travel in the South American countries we operate, and to really handle the marketing and the customer service end of it. And then in South America, we have small offices in each country that we operate, which at this point is Chile is our first and still strongest, if you will, or not strongest, but largest. Peru is quickly growing second. It will outpace Chile probably in the next year. Argentina and Ecuador and the Galapagos Islands are being part of Ecuador. So we have small offices there, generally with 1 to 2 people on staff. And from there, everybody else is really on a contract basis. So we have 5 to 10 preferred guides in each, well, not even in each country, because each country really has different regions. So, about 5 to 10 in each region, depending how in demand the region is. And you hire them based on who the client's going to be and what type of guide we think they'll like best. So guides, drivers, things like that. I wouldn't really say they're on staff, even though they're arguably the most important part of our business. They are, it's a little bit more loosely knit than that. We hire them based on per trip. So it's hard to tell you how many people work for Knowmad. I can tell you how many people work with Knowmad is multiple hundreds, but really as part of a team and as partners of what we're doing, which is promoting sustainable active travel in South America. It's not that they're employees, quote unquote.
So what's the most challenging part of the business?
For me personally, it's I come from a background where I love to be out, and the love of the outdoors and the love of Latin America were the two things that got me into this. And the reality of running a small to mid-sized business in a competitive industry, in 2013, when the internet is such a important tool, really it means that I am in an office so very many hours out of a week. And, learning to be fulfilled in an office that long and to make sort of the running of the business, make sure it stays interesting to me and keep a really positive attitude about it, that certainly is challenging. I don't get outside and, I travel with some of our larger special interest groups that are have a lot of people there, and I go along with, our local guides are doing the guiding, but I'm there sometimes as what's called a tour conductor to make sure everything's going well and, the way I like it. But, really the last few years, I haven't traveled a ton. I'm in an office a ton. So, but, I just still get to travel and have a fair amount of adventure and inspecting new lodges and new hotels and, occasionally going and meeting with our new guides and things like that. So there is adventure in it, certainly, but I think it's gaining a threshold for serious office life. That's of course a challenge, but it's part of what it takes to, do something that you love and build something that you think is meaningful and valuable, even if you don't get to always do what is most important to you and what you may have envisioned and been inspired by. I think anything in life, you've just got to, there's always some tough things that don't come naturally to you that you've got to challenge yourself with and learn to see as positive and enjoy as much as you can. So that's been really the toughest, I'd say.
Jordan, what do you think sets your business apart from all the others out there?
A lot of things. A lot of trip operators, they like to purport expertise, and so they like to say, well, we're the expert in this area or that area, and if you call us, we're the travel expert. But many of them are trying to offer trips and travel throughout the whole globe, and if you were interested in, say, traveling to Machu Picchu in Peru, and you called them up, you would probably talk to their travel specialists who maybe would have gone to Peru 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 times max, and done a couple pre-programmed itineraries, whereas we are designing everything by hand. Our specialists are spending many, many months, if not, like in my case, years in these places. Speak the language, have deep relationships, a true love for the region. So the first interaction is going to be with a trip specialist, and our trip specialists truly are that, and they know their region in and out. So that's where it starts, and it runs all the way through the trip experience with, I'd say the best local guides in the business. It's just a really, really high quality. And from a business standpoint, by being direct operators in a small area of the world, we're able to cut out a few of these, what I call layers of supply chain that some of the large trip operators have. So apples to apples, we're by far the best value. And what we do differently than other companies is we specialize in private and custom travel. So rather than you signing up for a specific trip that departs on March 19th, and we'll have other people that you don't know signing up for up to 12 people or 16, or, depends on the size company. we're able to offer a trip with better levels of service and guiding, same duration, etc. But you can choose your date. You can go with just your spouse or your kids or your, couples, friends, whatever. And, even doing it on a private basis and then collaborating with a specialist who builds a specific itinerary, that's perfect for you, that's based on your style, your preferences, your budget, your duration. We build truly custom trips for people with our expertise. And we're able to do that and then deliver it to small groups of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at a same or better price with the same or better services than other companies are doing with these, what we call, fixed date group trips. So it's a bit of a different model, if you will, in business speak. By being highly specialized and not trying to do everything, just trying to do a few things really, really well, we've succeeded. I strongly believe, and it's been echoed by really all of our clients, that we offer the best value and just really unique travel experiences. And that's really important. The fact that each trip is unique, and with our expertise, we're able to pull off a lot of little surprises along the way. We focus on authentic, true travel experiences. And like I say, we build your best travel experience, not John or Steve or Mary's, yours. And that's really special, because travel is meant to be as unique as the individual doing it. That's what makes it special to them. That's what, they walk away being changed people because they had their trip. And I think that's a big difference, is we facilitate people having their best trip as opposed to sending them on one of our trips.
Would you say that's the most rewarding part of the business?
Yeah, definitely when people come back, you spend a lot of time building trips. Sometimes you're doing a few rounds of revisions on different itineraries, and you're spending a lot of time talking to people to really discover what they want. And that can be very challenging, and at times, honestly, it can be frustrating because sometimes people don't know, even with counseling, at all what they want, or they think they do, but then a spouse or a child or someone wants something totally different, and you get thrown a lot of curveballs, and so it can be frustrating and really challenging. But when people come home and you know that you stayed with it, and part of you staying with it and not getting frustrated, and they come home and they had just this incredible experience, and they send you the photos, and they send you an email and a thank you letter, and they really see what you did for them, and they value it, and they let you know. Yes, of course, that is very, very, very rewarding.
Jordan, what do you think is the biggest misconception people have about your business?
Well, I think one of them is that it's all glamour, especially when it's adventure travel. And because we're very specialized in a region, we're not necessarily adventure travel, which is, it's tough to define what that is. It's not black and it's not white. But we work with people in all age ranges, with all, ranges of activity preference, whether it's every day they're, doing whitewater kayaking and rafting and then jumping on a horse and mountain biking, or they're sightseeing and focusing on the cultural elements and, not able to walk long distances, etc. We work with them all. So it's not, we don't, one misconception that there is about Knowmad is that we're adventure travel exclusively, and we're definitely not. Another misconception is that whether adventure travel or not, just that our business is very glamorous and sort of, that's all the fun part. And it's not, but there's a lot of it. But also, I think there is a bit of a misconception that international trip operators are expensive, that they make travel more expensive. Certainly, we're not able to work with shoestring backpackers, like I was doing many years ago in terms of my own personal travels. We're not going to be able to really offer services to them because there is, some great guiding involved and some different things, but it really doesn't cost people money, and people think it does. We get exceptional rates at partner hotels. We inspect hundreds of them, and then we, choose some preferred hotels, and, they give people like us wholesale rates, so we're getting much better rates, and our preferred guides that we work with all the time, they're not going to take on just a private client. Well, they're just not going to do it. But if they did, they would certainly be charging them more than the rate that we're paying because, they know we drive consistent business. So really there's a lot of added value without added cost. And I do run into the misconception a fair amount of times that, by working with a company like Knowmad, that you're paying for the service. You're not necessarily paying for the service. You're just having a better trip at a very good price.
You probably get a lot of questions, emails coming in from people. What are some of the common questions that you get? We see people at all different stages. A lot of people that find us through the internet where they've read some very particular articles that we've written and different things on specific things. They may have a very, very good plan put in place for what they want to do, and they'll come up with very specific questions, and those wouldn't be interesting to you. But we get a lot of that, and that's awesome. I love working with people who, are really into travel and have done a lot of trips and like to plan a lot, but recognize the added value of a professional, getting involved. And then we find a lot of other people who, are just considering maybe even their first international trip. Well, it's hard to say, the questions really run the gamut, but commonly it's, I guess, weather and if they know where they want to go roughly, weather and what time of year it might be best is a common one. Gosh, I don't know. That's tough. We just get so many different types of questions. I don't think I can boil it down. Sure. Is there anything that your clients do that drives you crazy?
I guess the situation that I alluded to before sometimes drives me crazy. We make very clear that there's, we've been doing this for quite a while. We do it every day, all day, and we're pretty good at it. And so there's a process in place for effectively planning custom travel for people. And we try to really explain that so people know the process, because it is effective and it does lead to great trips. And sometimes, like I say, when you get all the way down the line and you've gone through those steps and you've got a detailed custom proposal in front of somebody with all the details and the whole flow, and you've gone through the building blocks to get there, and then another trip member jumps in and says, well, I didn't want to do anything like this. I wanted to do this, or what about I wanted to go here or here, and it can be frustrating because you mentioned to the head trip planner, hey, if there's anyone else here who really wants to be involved in the planning process, let's make sure they're involved early on, and that we're communicating with them. And so when that doesn't happen, and then you get that curveball at the end, and it takes you back to square one, when, like I say, we don't charge a planning fee or anything like that. We know we're good at what we do, and so a custom trip proposal, we build it for people with no obligations and no cost, no planning fee like a lot of people or some people in the industry charge. We just don't think it's necessary at all. But when that happens, it's frustrating because it's a lot of time and it's just unnecessary sometimes. So I guess that's the closest thing. But really, we have really cool clients, well-traveled people who aren't well-traveled but are really eager and open for new experiences. I think we're very, very blessed, actually, to have really amazing people coming to us who want to have amazing experiences. So, there's very little about the interaction that's bothersome, but maybe that idiosyncrasy or that quirk of the last-minute curveball, I call it, that can be frustrating, sure.
Do you have any practical advice for people that want to travel to South America?
Yeah, tons. You kind of have to go more specific. But I guess on a general level, I would say don't overshoot. South America is an enormous continent. Your question is about a continent. So if you turned that question, if I turned it around on you, Paul, and I said, do you have any advice? Yo soy de Chile. I'm from Chile. And I ask you, do you have any advice on traveling to the United States? I don't think you could answer it. You wouldn't know where to start, really. And you would probably say, well, you need to choose a few destinations, or the number of destinations depends on how much time you have. And so I would be asking this person, how long are you able to travel? That is a common problem. People come to us, they say, I got 2 weeks. I want to go to South America. I want to see Iguazu Falls, which is on the border of Argentina and Brazil. I want to go down to Patagonia, which is at the very bottom of the continent. I'd like to see Buenos Aires, which is on the east coast of Argentina. And I want to see Machu Picchu. Well, you've basically just said in 2 weeks you want to go to Miami, New York, Yellowstone National Park, San Francisco. You've named about 5 places, and they're zigzagging all over. So you're going to spend a ton of time flying and in airports, and it doesn't really size up. If for 2 weeks, you'd probably want to hone it down to 4 maximum, maybe 3 different unique destinations. That's for someone who just asked the question that generally about South America as a whole. I'd start there. We'd start talking about how long you have, and I'd try to do some education on the different destinations and match them up with a region that might best align with them. I'd say, well, if archaeology and indigenous cultures really stick out to you, then Peru might be a place to consider. If outdoors and landscape and hiking and beautiful mountains and scenery is really more your primary interest, well, let's maybe talk about visiting Santiago and the Andes and then flying down to Patagonia, and maybe doing a combination of Chile and Argentina in the Patagonia. We'd be starting at the very high level. But yeah, the advice sort of boils more down to specific destinations and different very important things when planning a trip, say, for Machu Picchu or, for Patagonia.
Sure. Good point. Jordan, what's your personal most memorable travel experience?
Wow, Paul, you've got some tough questions. Shoot. I'm going to say a trip that we did just a few months ago here in April. My wife and I, there are 2 brand new sort of luxury adventure lodges, if you will, in Patagonia. One's called Tierra Patagonia, the other's called The Singular, and they're wonderful properties, and we've been working with them, but had only seen them under construction because they were recently finished. So we got to go and see those new lodges and see some old friends and, visit our office. And we also went up the Atacama Desert in the north of Chile, which is a phenomenal place. It's really quite unknown to the North American traveler. One of our favorite lodges in the world is up there. So we did a number of things, had just an amazing trip and amazing places, seeing some of our favorite people in the world for about a month. And that certainly is memorable, but what made it more memorable is shortly after coming home, we found out that my wife is pregnant and we're going to have our first child, and this child was conceived on that trip. So I guess that is going to literally be the most memorable trip of my life.
Congratulations.
Thanks a lot.
Well, Jordan Harvey, what's next for you?
You're looking at it really. I mean, our saying here is it is a marathon, not a race. And there are so many things that we want to do and ideas that we have to grow and bring our travel experiences to a wider audience and, just be everything that we want to be as a company. There's a lot to do. Right now we're working on a brand new website that's a lot more expansive and finally has all of our marketing materials for Ecuador and the Galapagos, which we've been operating for some time but don't have the marketing behind it. That's just one small thing. So what's next is just continuing to do what we're doing and do it better every day, and hopefully get to the point where it's a little easier and more common that we look around and smell the roses and just be proud of what we've done. Because right now we're pretty nose to the grindstone, but it's fun and it is really rewarding, and we can already look back on what we've done and be proud. So I'm excited to sit back in 10 more years and see where we've grown to. And it's really fun to be growing and bringing more people on board. Like I say, we're a small team here in the U.S., but it wasn't all that long ago that it was just my wife and I. So getting new, excited, young and old, but new people who are newer and younger in the industry, and being able to help give them a career in something that's really amazing, and help give them the opportunity to help other people have these really sort of poignant, impactful trips that really can change their lives. It's really rewarding. So I look forward to just keeping on.
And how can people get in touch with you?
Well, they can certainly call us. That's the best way to really get the planning process started is by phone, and we can learn a little bit about you and what you like to do, and chat from a high level in terms of destinations, like I say, or if you have a clearer picture and ideas of things you want to do, start from there too. But we can be reached by phone, toll free at 1-877-616-TRIP, which is 8747. Or if people want to speak with me directly, I almost always still try to work with most all of our clients myself. My direct line is 612-877-1735. My email is Jordan, Jordan, at KnowmadAdventures.com. But we spell Nomad, it's a play on words with the word know, to know, and nomad. So it's KNOWMAD adventures.com. And you can also email travel@KnowmadAdventures.com.
Okay, well, Jordan Harvey from Knowmad Adventures, thank you very much for talking to me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Paul. It's, the Pursuit Zone sounds just like a really, really cool thing. So we wish you all the best of luck, and, appreciate you reaching out to us.
Thank you. Recorded on June 27, 2013. For more great podcasts, visit thepursuitzone.com.